Most of us, when we think of Hawaii, we picture this beautiful U.S. state, a paradise vacation spot. But its journey to becoming a state is a really intense story of power, politics, and a sovereign kingdom that was completely lost. So today, we're going to break down how the independent Kingdom of Hawaii was overthrown and ultimately annexed by the United States.
Right. We all know Hawaii as the 50th state. But what a lot of people don't realize is that before that, it was its own sovereign kingdom, a recognized nation on the world stage for a long, long time. So how did an independent country end up becoming a U.S. territory, especially when most of its own people were against it? That is the big question we're digging into. Okay, so to really get how its sovereignty was lost, we first have to appreciate what the Kingdom of Hawaii actually was. And you've got to understand, this wasn't some isolated, unclaimed territory. The Kingdom of Hawaii was a modern constitutional monarchy. I mean, it had formal treaties with major world powers. Think Great Britain, France, and even the United States itself. It had its own flag, a national anthem, embassies all over the world. By every measure, it was a peer on the international stage. But just under the surface of this island paradise, a really powerful economic engine was churning, and it was creating some deep, destabilizing tensions. And that engine? It was all about sugar. Let's trace how this all went down. So starting way back in the 1820s, American missionaries and businessmen start showing up in Hawaii, and they begin to gain a ton of economic power and land. The real game changer hits in 1875. There's a treaty that makes Hawaiian sugar super profitable in the U.S. This creates this whole class of incredibly wealthy American sugar barons, who then, of course, want political control to protect their money. By 1887, they literally force a new constitution on the king at gunpoint. I'm not kidding, it's actually called the Bayonet Constitution, and it strips him of most of his power. So when his sister, Queen Liliuokalani, takes the throne in 1891, she's inheriting a kingdom that's already in a major crisis. And this just sets up the ultimate collision course. On one side, you have Queen Liliuokalani. She wants to write a new constitution to give power back to the monarchy and to her people. And on the other side, you have the American business elite. They're facing new U.S. tariffs on sugar, and they see a much more permanent solution. Just get the U.S. to annex Hawaii entirely to protect their profits for good. You basically have this direct clash between Hawaiian sovereignty and foreign business interests. This whole conflict just boils over in January of 1893. That's when the sugar barons decide, okay, we're taking matters into our own hands. The overthrow itself happened with, honestly, stunning speed. A small group of these American businessmen, calling themselves the Committee of Safety, they plot a coup. And they have a key ally, the U.S. Minister to Hawaii. He, completely without authorization from Washington, lands U.S. Marines in Honolulu. Now, the Marines never actually fired a shot, but their presence was a very clear show of force, basically backing the rebels. And with that intimidation in place, the committee simply declares the Queen overthrown and installs themselves as the new government. So this puts the Queen in just an impossible position. But what's really important here is that she was very careful not to abdicate her throne. Instead, she yielded her authority, and listen to this, not to the rebels, but specifically to the superior force of the United States. As she said herself, her goal was to avoid a violent conflict, to avoid the deaths of her people. She was holding on to this hope that the U.S. government would eventually investigate what happened and restore her to her rightful place. The conspirators immediately send a team to Washington, D.C. to ask for annexation. They're thinking, hey, this is a done deal. But they were not expecting the new guy in the White House. Right after the overthrow, a new U.S. president, Grover Cleveland, comes into office. And see, Cleveland was a staunch anti-imperialist. He was immediately suspicious about the whole thing, especially the very convenient presence of U.S. troops. So he hits the brakes on the annexation treaty and decides to find out what really went down. And what he found? It was absolutely damning. After launching his own investigation, President Cleveland did not mince words. He called the overthrow an act of war and a total abuse of power, and he put the blame squarely on the U.S. minister and the American conspirators. He even tried to get the Queen restored to her throne. The official investigation that Cleveland ordered was called the Blount Report, and its findings were crystal clear. The American minister had acted improperly, U.S. troops had made the coup possible, and the vast, vast majority of Native Hawaiians did not support this new regime or the idea of annexation. This wasn't some opinion. This was the official U.S. government conclusion at the time. And you know who wasn't staying silent through all this?
the people of Hawaii. Native Hawaiians organized these massive petition drives against annexation. They're known as the Kue petitions. And get this, they gathered over 21,000 signatures. That is an incredible number, representing nearly every single adult Native Hawaiian at the time. These petitions were presented to the U.S. Senate, and they were a huge reason why the first annexation treaty failed. Okay, so let's get this straight. You've got the U.S. president against it. A formal treaty is blocked, and the Hawaiian people are overwhelmingly opposed. So how on earth did annexation still happen? Well, the answer lies in a pretty clever political workaround. The simple answer is the politics changed. After Cleveland's term ended, a new president, William McKinley, was elected. McKinley was a total expansionist. So where Cleveland saw an illegal act of war, McKinley saw a strategic opportunity for American growth and power. The political will in Washington had done a complete 180. And the final push came in 1898 with the Spanish-American War. As the U.S. was fighting Spain over in the Philippines, suddenly Hawaii's location, right there in the middle of the Pacific, looked, well, absolutely vital. The whole argument shifted from being about commerce to being about military necessity. Annexation was now framed as a matter of national security. But here's the thing. The pro-annexation folks knew they still couldn't get the 2/3 Senate vote they needed for a treaty. It was too high a bar. So they used a legislative trick, a joint resolution. Think about it like this. A treaty needs a supermajority, like a 2/3 vote. But a resolution, that just needs a simple majority in both houses. It's a much, much lower bar, and it was a clever way to bypass the usual constitutional standard for acquiring new territory. And it worked. Using this joint resolution, Congress voted to annex Hawaii. And on July 7, 1898, 5 years after that illegal overthrow, the sovereign kingdom of Hawaii was officially absorbed into the United States. Not by a treaty, and completely against the expressed will of its people. And look, these events from over a century ago, this isn't just dusty old history. They continue to shape really important debates about sovereignty, about justice, and identity in Hawaii to this day. And it really leaves us with a pretty heavy question, doesn't it? What is the lasting legacy when the foundation of a modern state is built upon a stolen paradise?